Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. We love you in Canada. We love you in Africa and China, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful October the 30th, 2019. Grondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, you have to say it's all about the World Series. We have seen an epic 6-game performance thus far with Game 7, the decisive game tonight going off in Houston. And what this has been is a thriller for all the fans of baseball.
Yeah, it takes you back to, in the World Series, it's like every little kid at some point in time either played Little League Baseball or they just played baseball with their friends at some local park in the neighborhood, and they all dreamed of a Game 7, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, counts 3-2. How wonderful to see that tonight, Big C. Just download the app. It's all fair and love and more. Big C Sports, brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports, and you'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate where we're going with Big C Sports. I also want to say Big C Sports can be seen on Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, and Fire TV, as well as other smart TVs around the universe. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, just tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Big C, I know we get into World Series and everybody's happy. It's really, Game 7 is really the only thing that can put basketball and football on the back burner. But before we get into that, I just want to make sure people are paying attention to what's going on in the White House. And you're under stress when you're taking orders from somebody and they're telling you to break the law. But sometimes you just have stuff going on in your own life that causes stress. We have a suicide hotline for military veterans, Big C, and some are being called to testify. And it's a national suicide hotline, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, you know, in this plethora of sports that we have going on, Charlton, right now, we have a tendency to forget about and care about other people, or even paying attention to other people, and they happen to slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
But this National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there, Charlton, for people who always want to pay attention to someone, to always be that ear for people to lean on and talk to, Charlton.
Yeah.
We have so many great veterans in this country, and some of them have been called to Congress to testify,
Yeah.
Charlton, in this impeachment inquiry, and the stress that puts on them and their families, and even veterans who are not involved in that situation, Charlton. We have so many veterans that are stationed around the world, and they come back home, and there's really no one for them to deal with. They lose the brotherhood and sisterhood of soldiers that they've been involved with, their support base, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they get home, and people don't know how to deal with the stress that they've been through, and these veterans on many occasions, Charlton, have taken the wrong road and taken their lives. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number there is there to talk to people, Charlton, to hopefully ease some of the stress and worries in people's lives. And we need to find a better way, even beyond this National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, to help out so many Americans that are in stressful need of relief.
Yeah, and I agree with that. We all know it's a wonderful thing when you can really have pride in what you do, Big C. But when you come out and you tell people that somebody is doing something wrong and you're told that you're anti-American, that doesn't make any sense at all. But it is all fair and love and war. Big C, we have Game 7, World Series. It's really, I know every fan loves a Game 7, especially if you're the team that could have gotten eliminated like the Washington Nationals. And it's happened tonight down in Texas. Only in the history of Major League Baseball, only 2 home teams that were down 0-2 came on to win the World Series. The 85 Royals, the 86 Mets, and the 96 Yankees. Think about what's happening now. Them good old boys from Houston, they were really wire-to-wire favorites. Now, if history holds up, the road team will win again. We'll see what happens, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when we look at the World Series and how great the Fall Classic has been over the decades, Charlton, only 2 World Series have been won by walk-off home runs in the 7th game of the series. Bill Mazeroski did it for the Pirates, and Joe Carter did it for the Blue Jays.
Yep.
But as we look at this epic Game 7, Charlton, and no home team has won a game in this series, it has been a split between the teams, Charlton. You have to look no further than all team 7-game series sports in the United States.
Yeah.
Never has a team won all 4 home games to win a championship, either in Major League Baseball, NHL hockey, or NBA basketball, Charlton.
Wow.
If this happens tonight with the Washington Nationals, this will be the first time in the history of team sports that a team has swept all 4 games on the road.
It's amazing when you think about that. And when you look at just tonight, and we look at starting and pitching, and everybody has an idea on who should start. But I just think about Matt Scherzer with the Nationals. He's 11-7 on the season. ERA is 2.92 in the regular season. And then he's 3-0. And you look at the playoffs in the postseason, 2.16 ERA. He gets a lot better, Big C. And then Zach Greinke, you look at what he's done on the other side of the mound for the Astros. He's 18-5 on the season, 2.93 ERA regular season. He's 0-2 right now in the postseason, and he has a 5.30 ERA. That cannot feel good if you're the Houston Astros, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Zach Greinke, Charlton, in his start tonight, he's been hittable. His ERA at 5.31.
Yeah.
In the playoffs, he has not been the pitcher that they acquired in that mid-season trade, Charlton, to help shore up that starting lineup for them. But when you go on the flip side and look at Matt Scherzer, this is a guy that was scratched from his last start.
His elbow,
because of back stiffness.
Yeah.
He's taking a cortisone shot, and if this cortisone shot works tonight for him, I'm going to put in a call and find out which doctor shot him up so I can go see him myself. But, it's going to be a question mark between both of these starting pitchers. Can they go into 5 or 6 innings tonight?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure everybody needs a cortisone shot every now and then, Big C. Maybe you think POTUS could use a good... How about more than POTUS? Could Giuliani use a cortisone shot, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I think both of them have a little stress that they might want to have relieved through a cortisone shot or maybe even some narco.
Yeah, it could all help, Big C. So when you think about it, who else should be available for the Nats in the bullpen? If somebody has to come in, you think about Patrick Corbin, there's Anibal Sanchez, Daniel Hudson, even Sean Doolittle. I doubt if it gets that far because right now it's about, cortisone shot, it really is a panacea for a lot of athletes. And I know people said back in the day oftentimes, this guy is tough. He's really toughing it out. He's playing with broken bones, broken ribs, and he has that macho-ness that makes him play with broken ribs. It's called a needle. Does that make sense? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the needle has always been prevalent in sports, Charlton. It's one of those, as they call, motivators to get a player over the hump of pain.
Yeah.
And in professional sports, Charlton, you're dealing with all kinds of pain. You think about the baseball regular season schedule, which is 162 games, and what you have to go through to keep yourself healthy throughout that time. Not only that, as a pitcher, when he's on the mound, Charlton, he's active every play that he's on the mound. We see outfielders and infielders, they're sitting there most of the game, but that pitcher has emotion every pitch of the game, and it tears on the shoulder, the arm, the lower back, the legs, Charlton. And so there's a lot more stress put on a pitcher and a catcher every play of a baseball game.
It really is. And when you look on the other side of the mound, Big C, for the Astros, if they have to go and get out of the bullpen, you think about guys like Garrett Cole and how, he's been amazing since May, but then he got beaten up on his last try. Justin Verlander, the starter of Game 6 that also got whacked, he said, hey, if manager needs me, if Hinch needs me, I'm in there playing for him. But he's the reason they got whipped up on in Game 6. They also have Will Harris coming out of the dugout, Joe Smith, Josh James. But even Roberto Osuna, if it goes that far, then they're already in trouble. I know with all the people that love baseball, there has to be a lot of people in Texas that are kind of nervous right now because, as you mentioned, if you're the Mystic, Big C, only the universe can tell the truth. It started in Oakland, when I was telling you Big C is coming out to Oakland now, the A's are playing World Series kind of baseball, and you said, well, not so fast, because a lot of the times it's the road team that doesn't have distractions. Big C, you said that in the playoff game. It's going down to Game 7. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I look at Game 7 tonight, Charlton. We saw the game last night, and we saw Verlander. Verlander has not gotten any run support since he's been pitching throughout the playoffs. He's never gotten more than 2 runs in any game that he pitched. So it's easy to say yes. He's 0-5, 0-6 now in World Series competition, even though he's a Hall of Fame pitcher.
Oh, yeah.
But he hasn't gotten the run support. And I wonder mentally from his teammates, do they sit back and say, well, he's on the mound, we can take the night off? And that's what it seemed like with the bats every time that he has pitched. Those teammates have taken the night off. But when we look at the Astros and the Nationals tonight, Charlton, there's 5 storylines that really matter most here in this World Series Game 7.
Yeah.
Which, how will Matt Scherzer feel? We talked about the cortisone injection that he's gotten in his back.
Yeah.
Will that back stay loose enough for him to get into the middle innings of the game? When we look at Zach Greinke, which Greinke will show up? Will it be the Zach Greinke who had the less than 3 ERA during the regular seaon? Or will it be the normal Zach Greinke that we've seen in the playoffs with almost a 5.5 run ERA?
Yep.
When will we see Garrett Cole? He's going to come out of the bullpen for the Astros tonight. He's been their most dominant pitcher throughout this 6-game series thus far.
Yeah.
Then the big game, Charlton, the big storyline, who will be the MVP of the World Series? There are so many people out there that are worthy of being the MVP.
Yeah.
We look at Soto. We look at Zimmerman for the Nationals. We look at Altuve and Cole for the Astros.
Yeah.
So this will be an epic game tonight, Charlton. Will the road team make epic history, Charlton? The first team in a team series, Game 7 series, will they be the first to ever sweep all 4 games on the road and win a title?
And I also look at Kendrick for the Nationals that hit that grand slam against the Dodgers out of Chavez Ravine, Big C. That's really the reason that they're here, because the Dodgers were going to start sweeping their way in. But, things happen. And what I love about the game of baseball is, unlike football, that you have 11 on each side, Big C, unless you're Notre Dame. Sometimes Coach Kelly comes out on the field too, Big C. But if you have baseball, and if you've ever played the game, anyone listening out there in the universe that's ever played baseball, you're standing at home plate, and then you have someone on the mound. It's you and that guy on the mound. And unlike Little League Baseball, where they're not throwing too hard, you got guys throwing between 90 and 100 miles per hour, and that's mano a mano. Big C, would you equate that moment in sports a lot like boxing, where it's just you and your opponent in the ring, Big C, or tennis, where it's just 2 guys on the court, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think anything can compare to boxing and tennis, because you're the only 2 people in that ring that are performing, Charlton. When you look at baseball and you think about a pitcher has to keep facing different opponents every time the next batter's up. So it's not always the same guy. He has to change up his pitching routine as well as he changes up his delivery.
Yeah.
When we think about the game that Steven Strasburg pitched last night, this guy is now 5-0 in postseason action, Charlton. He was dominant, going 8 1/3 innings last night. It seemed like he had more. I think the reason why he was pulled out of the game, just in case he's needed tonight, that they can possibly get anywhere from a third to 1 inning out of him tonight, Charlton, with the way he has handled the Astros pitchers. But when I look at these one-on-one performances in baseball, we always just think about the pitcher and the batter. The catcher is more integral than anybody ever thinks. He is the guy, Charlton, who is making the decisions on what pitch the pitcher must throw.
Yeah.
Not only that, he is there, infamous in framing that pitch behind the plate, giving him a strike zone to throw it in, Charlton, hoping that the umpire makes the correct call.
Yeah, and speaking of the correct call, it's always up into the eye of the beholder, or whoever they call in New York, and just about how dominant Strasburg was last night. You mentioned 8 3/4 pitch. He had 5 hits, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts, and only 2 base on balls with a 7-2 win. He threw 104 pitches, and he could have thrown 140 pitches, in my opinion. And of those 104 pitches, Big C, 65 were strikes. He went in there to win, not to duck his way around. But I got to ask you a question that still kind of burns in my gut. When you got a player in a Game 6, which is an elimination game for Washington, and you get a hit, and you're running down to first base, and to me, the first baseman, he kind of leaned behind the runner because the pitch was errant. It wasn't a good pitch or a good throw to get him out, and so they called interference when the guy had a double, and then the manager gets off the hook, and he gets tossed, and I don't think that's right. You shouldn't toss anybody. Just call, take a timeout and get it right. Doesn't make any sense, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you got to also look at all the antics that were played on that play. I mean, it was a bad call by the officials because he was within the base path.
Yep.
He wasn't running outside the base path, and just so happened the first baseman put his glove out and it got nicked by the runner, Charlton. That was a normal play in baseball.
Yeah.
But also you got to look at the manager coming out of the dugout. You're not going to change that umpire's decision by getting in a verbal pissing spat with the umpire, Charlton. I think what he did was trying to motivate his team, because if you look at the game at that time, it was very close.
Yeah.
After the manager got kicked out, all of a sudden his team caught fire, Charlton. They had a fire in their belly. Look, he stood there for us. He stood up for us and got ejected from the game. Now we cannot afford to let him down. And you saw the Washington Nationals go on a roll at that time. There's always things throughout a contest that people do to motivate others, Charlton.
Yep.
When you see your team performing lackluster, you got to find a way to fire up that fire in their belly. And that's what he did last night, Charlton. Through doing that, that was a motivational move to get his team to play harder, and they did.
Yeah, I was impressed by the game because of the storyline and the pressure with the road team coming in there winning. As soon as they got away from POTUS and the stench of what's going on with the White House and impeachment inquiries, Big C, they played better. It's something about being away from home. But it makes Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz, wrong. She said there's no place like home. Are they proving that Dorothy was wrong? Did Dorothy lie, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, here in this World Series, Charlton, I don't think any of the team has really appreciated what has gone on at home. They've all struggled at home. And like I said, you have so many distractions when you play a home series because everybody in your life knows where you are. They're stopping by your house and congratulatories, asking for tickets, and just getting out of your normal routine.
Yeah.
When you're a road team, you have a normal routine that you can't get out of. You know you're going to be staying in a luxury hotel.
Yep.
You know you're going to be getting room service. You're not going to be out gallivanting around the town bothered by friends and family.
Yeah.
So you're at ease the whole time. You can relax and concentrate on the task at hand.
Well, the task at hand, we'll see who's really able to concentrate more on the task at hand tonight. What a great environment down in Houston. The only thing bad about this World Series is you can't look up and see the stars. In fact, you cannot look up and see the universe. All the stars will be out in Texas tonight, and I'm happy for Game 7 in the World Series. May the best team win. Big C, I want to jump over to the world of the NFL, and I know everybody loves NFL football. It goes year-round, it seems. NFL football after 8 games. We're at the midpoint of the season, and I want to get Big C's thoughts on the top 10 rookies. I'm just going to give them out there, and you can tell me what you think. I would say Devin Bush of the Pittsburgh Steelers, linebacker, 59 tackles. He has 1 sack. He has 2 interceptions and 3 pass deflections. He's a rookie, not a third-year player, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Devin Bush is really coming on, their number 1 draft pick out of the University of Michigan, Charlton. Where the Steelers had been hurting on defense was in that linebacking core.
Yeah.
They had not expected to lose their starting quarterback, but Devin Bush has been playing outstanding as a rookie middle linebacker. He's one of the leaders in the NFL in tackles.
Well, another player, we talked about the Oakland A's in baseball and how he got the chance to play for the A's and said, no, I'd rather go down to Arizona and play for the Cardinals. It's amazing the A's are in the playoffs. The Cardinals probably won't make it. But Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals quarterback, he's 186 of 292 passing completions, 1,988 yards. He has 7 touchdowns. He has 4 interceptions. But even more impressive as a running quarterback, he's 51 carries for 279 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's almost going about 140 yards a game, rushing, Big C. But if this guy is right about 12 yards away at the halfway mark, he's a 4,000-yard passer on the season for a guy that many people doubted for size and for other reasons. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at what Kyler Murray has accomplished already down in the desert, Charlton, he's eclipsed all the performances of the quarterbacks that the Cardinals had on their roster last year. So the future is very bright for this young man. As soon as Cliff Kingsbury can get a better grasp of how to handle him against NFL defenses, Charlton, we'll eventually see the Cardinals with a winning record in the desert again.
Yeah, I know they're on their way, Big C. I want to also look at another good old boy, Gardner Minshew, Jacksonville Jaguars. His mustache is not like Billy D. Williams. Billy D. Williams had a mustache that a lot of men want to have, and Gardner Minshew is more like a skit. Big C is a prop. But Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback, he's 161 of 260 in pass completions, 1,976 yards, and 13 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He's run the ball 38 times for 201 yards, Big C. That boy's averaging, that's good for a guy that's known as a passing quarterback, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Gardner Minshew, a 6th-round draft pick out of Washington State, was not even expected to play this year in the NFL, Charlton. Did not start the season. He got the nod after Nick Foles was hurt.
Yeah.
But he put some life into that Jacksonville Jaguar offense. We've always known they've had an outstanding defense down there, but now they have a quarterback that can throw the ball, that has mobility.
Yep.
He is not the same quarterback they had down there before, Blake Bortles. This guy is for real.
No, he is for real. And I want to go on the defensive side. Josh Allen, Jacksonville Jaguars, defensive end, 23 tackles. He has 7 sacks, Big C, and 2 forced fumbles. He's on pace to average about 14 sacks on the season. And that's, they're going to start double-teaming him, so maybe that sack total is going to come down. But that's very impressive. He's only a rookie, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, a 1st-round draft pick out of University of Kentucky, I thought he was the best pure rusher coming out of college football last year, Charlton.
Yeah.
And Jacksonville took a stab on him in the 1st round, and he has not let them down. He has been very productive. He's tied with all rookie sackers in the NFL, Charlton. And this Jacksonville Jaguars, we know they got 2 great defensive tackles.
Yeah.
He's been a solid asset along with Gardner Minshew on that program.
Well, there's another player out on the West Coast for the 49ers, Nick Bosa. Yeah, he has some stuff, some dirt in his Kool-Aid from the past, Big C, but maybe they've forgiven him. At the same time, the 49ers looking for another gold finger to put on that hand. This good old boy has 20 tackles, 7 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and an interception that was turned down. I guess he got it right about the 10-yard line. He came out of high school down in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale at St. Thomas Aquinas High School. They have a lot of pro athletes that help out in that program. He's starting to shine for the 49ers defense, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's been the benefactor, Charlton, of 4 of the number 1 draft picks on that defensive line. It has really helped him out in his development. He's right there with Allen with 7 quarterback sacks on the season, Charlton. The 49ers are undefeated and looking to try to win the West for the first time in over a decade out there.
Well, they might come at least 1st or 2nd, Big C, but they still have Seattle. And the Rams are still hanging around, but Seattle and the 49ers, they're going to come up in a colossal matchup coming up pretty soon. In fact, they got to play twice. There's another rookie in Oakland, Josh Jacobs, Big C, 124 carries as a running back, 640 yards. He has 4 touchdowns, 11 catches for 102 yards. And they have Derek Carr, the quarterback that can get the ball downfield. They're just not that consistent on defense, Raiders, Big C. But I really like the way this young man is running. He reminds me of a guy by the name of Clarence Davis back in the day in the Sea of Hands, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he is the 3rd of the Raiders' 3 number 1 draft picks, Charlton, and been the most productive of those 3. The other 2 were spent on the defensive end and defensive back, which they have no pass rush once again with the Oakland Raiders. Josh Jacobs has been a pleasant surprise. He's leading all rookie running backs in rushing yards this year.
Yeah, he's really good. Terry McLaurin, Washington Redskins, wide receiver, 28 receptions, 497 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's doing his thing even though they got rid of Gruden as a head coach, and they've had a quarterback problems. They got to, I think, just put Haskins in and let him learn. Don't wait till next year to make him learn. Let him learn now. But he's been doing his thing as a receiver, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at McLaurin and his productivity in this anemic Washington Redskins offense, He was a second-round draft pick out of Ohio State. They drafted him after their number 1 draft pick, Dwayne Haskins. You would think with McLaurin's success, maybe you might want to put in Haskins. These two guys were on the same page when they were in college at Ohio State. Maybe they could get on the same page with the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, and I think he's off to a great start. It's great when you have a rookie come in. Oftentimes they sit the bench, but now guys, they have all the conditioning and the coaching that you get at the college level at the major programs. When they come into the NFL, a lot of those guys are ready. I want to look at another player, Eric McCoy, New Orleans Saints. Now, he's a center. These guys are ignored, Big C. They get about as much appreciation as a doorknob. Everybody just grabbing all over it, not saying thank you, Big C. But the Saints are averaging 4.7 yards per carry. People oftentimes don't know that the center is also the quarterback for the offensive lineman, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think he's going to be one of the more intelligent guys on the offense, Charlton. He has to make all the calls, blocking schemes for the offensive line, and he's a pure rookie. He has to make all the recognition of what's going on defense. This is a team who lost their starting quarterback, Drew Brees, who was out for over a month with a thumb injury, and Teddy Bridgewater stepped in. So not only did he help Teddy Bridgewater, but Teddy Bridgewater helped him. They lost their top running back, Alvin Kamara, and you think about Latavius Murray stepping in. This is the focal point of their offense, the center. Everybody talks about the quarterback,
right?
But the center is just as integral, Charlton.
Yeah, the quarterback, last I checked, the quarterback never gets the ball unless the center hikes it, Big C, so they really hold the show down. Also, when you think about other players, it's just amazing how, if you think about it, when you're in college last year, now you're in the NFL, you're getting paid, but it's also a business, and they're still stepping up, Big C. DK Metcalf, Seattle Seahawks wide receiver, 23 receptions, 402 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's so fortunate. He gets to learn from Russell Wilson, Big C, a guy who's going to be a Hall of Famer, has a Super Bowl trophy, has so much experience, and you know the player's never over when he starts to run out of the pocket, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, DJ Metcalf, second-round draft pick out of University of Mississippi, blew everybody away in the combine, running a 4.2 40 at 6'4", 225 pounds, wide receiver. And he is developing steadily in Seattle. He is becoming more integral in that Seahawk offense. He had 2 touchdowns the last game, Charlton. So Russell Wilson is getting more and more comfortable with him and expect big things as the season goes on.
Yeah, it makes a big difference when your quarterback cannot get sacked and he buys your time. That's going to give you more yards and more plays, and you just got to come back to the ball more. Big C, Mecole Hardman, Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver, 20 receptions, 374 yards, 4 touchdowns. And just like we talked about with Wilson, when Mahomes is healthy, I wonder if receivers love it that they have quarterbacks that can run around for an extra 2 seconds and give them that chance to make a play. But oftentimes you got to come back to the ball to make a play. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about that great receiving core in Kansas City, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, little kid number 10, Hunt, I believe is his name.
Hunt,
and you get Mecole Hardman, the rookie out of University of Georgia. This is the theme. We got 2 rookie receivers out of the SEC, out of Mississippi and Georgia.
Yeah.
And both of these guys are being successful in the NFL. They're both in systems, Charlton, with athletic quarterbacks that allow them to develop. And when you think about Patrick Mahomes, last year's MVP, he was out 2 games, Charlton. But Mecole Hardman has been what's advertised for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, they're really good. So that's Big C's, top players, the top 10 rookies at the midway of the season, and they're just going to get better with time. But ironically, everything's not good at the same time. We would like it to be that way in life, but that's the way things work in the world of sports. On April 2nd, 2019, remember the Alliance of American Football? They ceased operations. Well, October 30th, 2019, Arena Football League, they're closing its doors to operations. There's a lot of sports leagues. Sports is a billion-dollar industry, and we know that boys and girls sports is the foundation for that billion-dollar industry, Big C. But at the time where we have record contracts in many sports now, why are so many leagues trying to get off the ground, but they just can't get off the ground, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if it's not getting off the ground. You got to think about the Arena Football League. This league was around for almost 30 years, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's put a wealth of players around in other leagues, in the Canadian Football League as well as the NFL. Many players have played in that league and gone on to bigger leagues.
Yeah.
But as we look at the competition for the football dollar, even the sports dollar here in America, and we have the XFL, which is going to be starting in February, you have to understand that this is the reason why other leagues don't have competition.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball does not have competition. NHL hockey does not have competition, Charlton. And we look at the NFL, it has really not had much competition. It's had a lot of upstart leagues over time trying to compete, but the NBA has no competition.
Yeah.
When fans are used to seeing the best of a professional sport, Charlton, it's hard for them to take that dollar and go off and see what might be advertised or even thought of as a lesser product.
Yeah.
We've seen scab players play over the years in the NFL. Fans, some showed up, but not all showed up, Charlton, because it was a lesser product.
Yeah.
We saw the USFL try to challenge the NFL, and that was the one that had the best chance of all, Charlton.
Yeah.
It lasted for a couple years, but in the end, it could not compete and sustain the same quality of product that the NFL has.
Yeah, it's all about how much money do people have that becomes expendable. At the rate that streaming is happening all over the universe, people are starting to stream more, and they can actually stay home and watch more sports and stand in line at a stadium for a new league starting up. We're going to what's called the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about some football and some things that are going on, and we hope that you'll come back and join us. You're going to love what Big C has to say in the second half. All right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the universe on the #1 podcast network in the universe. That's iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, Amazon TV, just a lot of good things that are happening in the sports universe. I want to just bring you to something because we always talk about college football, and we talk about, of course, high school football, and, of course, the NFL. I want to jump into Big C's bottom 10 college football programs. These are teams that their season's really over, but they can always look forward to next year. I want to start number 10, Northwestern. It's only fitting that Northwestern represents the Big Ten. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about starting the worst 10 out of the Big Ten, and Northwestern, Charlton, has had an abysmal season, only one win on the year, and they know they have no place to go in this conference. And just a couple of short years ago, they were representing the Big Ten out in the Rose Bowl.
That's very true, because they have too many kids that go into class. They need to be in practice, Big C. Practice more important than class in some schools. Number 9, Arkansas Razorbacks. The fans had to endure a week without listening about Tua, Big C, and they were kind of like a doorknob for Alabama when they played them good old boys. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they thought that they had a chance with Alabama last week because Tua was out of the game, Charlton. Before they looked up, they were down 5 touchdowns.
5 touchdowns, and that's not easy to overcome against Alabama. The number 8 worst team, Purdue. This is the team that I thought would make some noise this year, but they had a lot of people banged up. What else can you lose in West Lafayette, Indiana, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, they seem to be left out of that Big Ten race as you look at it, Charlton.
Yep.
Had a very promising preseason with a lot of accolades laid out on their quarterback. They lost him and their top receiver, Charlton, and the rest of the team just could not pick up the stride.
That's very true. Big C, when you look at Vanderbilt, what else can you say about a team that loses to UNLV? I mean, come on, the Commodores. I thought the Commodores were a music group, Big C, not a football powerhouse. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess they're using a Commodore old song, Stay Alone, because that's what they're doing. This season is gone.
Yeah, that season's gone, Big C. But maybe it'll come back. You want to look at UTEP, University of Texas, El Paso. They have one of the most beautiful stadiums that's carved right into the mountains for a program that just hasn't won at the rate that they should, you would think, Big C. The Miners have racked up enough frequent flyer miles, though, to fill the Sun Bowl, but not for a win, Big C. They're really struggling in one of the most beautiful stadiums in the country, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, it's a very picturesque being in that stadium there in El Paso, Texas, Charlton, but they just have not been able to bring in enough athletes. And you think about the state of Texas and the athletes that are in that great state, Charlton, they just can't get them down in El Paso.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful place, but they're just not having success. Big C, another southern border team, New Mexico State Aggies, they will have traveled 5,800 miles in their last 2 games not to get a victory. I saw them get beaten up by Georgia. I said, okay, I can understand losing by, many margins. I thought it was Georgia that beat them. They lost to Georgia Southern by many moons, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think they use that old saying from AB Sports, the agony of defeat. That's for the Aggies.
Yeah.
That needs to be their mantra now.
The Aggies of defeat. That makes sense, Big C. Sometimes when I'm hungry and I don't want to take a lot of time to cook, I'll just make up a nice bowl of rice. Well, the Rice Owls might have a better chance of getting wins this season on Halloween if they go outside and scare somebody. They might show up as a football team, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that seems to be the University of Rice's only chance to win is on Halloween, to go out and scare some kids and get somebody off the scoreboard.
Well, hopefully they won't go out and do that. We don't want kids being scared, Big C. Think about another great part of the country for sports. That's the Northeast, Boston. University of Massachusetts, the Minutemen, they might take a minute to think about why they kicked off the season in the first place, Big C. They used to be a dominant program. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they might be changing their name from UMass to UMess because they messed up this year.
Yeah. Well, I understand. When they say UMass, they're talking about Mass in church to ask for Jesus help. Yeah, something of that nature, Big C. And then another team, and it makes you wonder why they even joined a bigger conference. And I look at Rutgers. The Rutgers program, they're in the heart of New Jersey. They're in the East Coast, Northeast. You would think they could compete with the schools like Syracuse. You would think they could. Even the schools like Virginia, Big C. But Rutgers started the faces in the Big Ten with the worst team in college football. It will end the Big Ten season as the worst team in college football. It's a shame that they joined that conference for the money and their fans are being robbed. They should play in a lesser conference, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about just conference sports in college in general. It's not always about just one sport. It's what a conference, what the athletic program can bring to the conference overall.
Money.
You think about all the top recruits out of that state end up going to Ohio State, Penn State, and those great universities, Charlton. Ever since Greg Schiano has left, this program has struggled to find its footing.
Yeah, they really have. I hope that they have success. That's a great area of the country. They have some great high schools over there in New Jersey. Don Bosco Prep is one of the mainstays, but there's a lot of good programs out there, and hopefully they'll start keeping some of those kids home a lot like the Pac-12. I want to think about, mentioning schools on the East Coast. We talked about St. Francis of Maryland. There's DeMatha of Maryland. Of course, Don Bosco Prep. There's a lot of good schools on the East Coast. I want to go to the high school level. We do Big C's Friday Night Lights on Fridays, Big C, but there's a lot of good players around the country that we also want to just talk about the success that they're having starting out the season. I want to say some of the stat leaders, and many people may not think about these guys because they may not be on a number one team, but they're playing like they could be, Big C, and how they would stack up against some of the top teams in the country. There's a quarterback by the name of J.R. Blaine at Houston's Canton High School. His name is J.R. Blaine Houston, Canton High School in Canton, Ohio, Big C. And he's 247 of 388 passing. He's already thrown for 3,673 yards. And he has 29 touchdowns, but he does have 16 picks. But, Big C, that's a lot of yards for a high school guy, 3,600 yards passing.
Well, you're talking about a quarterback that's going out and gambling on every Friday night, Charles.
Hey, don't say gambling.
He's striking fear at a lot of defensive backs across the country. I know you do your Friday Night Lights of the top 10 teams on the prep scale, Charlton, and a lot of those are academy schools where kids are paying to get in and their parents are paying for them to get in. These are just normal high school kids, Charlton, that are playing in normal conferences. I would love to see them stack up against some of the alleged big boys sometime.
Well, oftentimes when you don't have money to recruit guys from all over your state to come to one school, it's difficult to beat them. But there's a senior running back, Jalen White. He's at a Daleville High School in Daleville, Alabama. Nick Saban probably has him on his DM. DM is called a direct message, and I just learned that from my son, Big C. 197 carries, 3,381 yards. Big C, he scored 47 touchdowns, and the season's not over yet, Big C. Your thought?
Well, I'm thinking about the number of carries you just mentioned, Charlton, and having 3,000 yards rushing. You talk about a nightmare for any defense around the country. You talk about those are the type of numbers, Charlton, that quarterbacks put up.
Yeah.
You're talking about a guy who's taking handoffs and lighting everybody up for over 3,000 yards, and we're only 8 games into the high school football season, Charles.
Yeah, he must be a low. You know, Nick Saban's been sending him some DMs, Big C. Sophomore wide receiver Samuel Agenon at Duncanville High School out of Duncanville, Texas, 118 receptions, 3,189 yards. This good old boy has 33 touchdowns, and I want to say this again because it's almost unbelievable. He's a wide receiver. He has 3,189 yards, Big C. Texas, can you hear me? Your thoughts?
Well, I think Tom Herman and everybody else down in Texas, Charlton, will hear you. All the top teams in the country have to be taking a look at this kid, Charlton. That's somewhere around 27, 28 yards every time he touches a football. And you talk about the astronomical number of touchdowns, 33?
Yeah.
I mean, some teams don't even score that on a season. Nor would they have that many yards quarterbacks passing on a season, Charlton. He has that by one individual.
Yeah, they had a big national matchup against St. John's of Washington, D.C., and they beat them. They run the number, depending on what poll, the 3 or 4 ranked team in the country down in Texas, number 1 school in the state of Texas so far. And then there's a senior quarterback by the name of Seth Brown. He's out of St. Paul II High School in Huntsville, Alabama. This good boy has 48 touchdowns. He's 779 of 262 passing. He only has 2,800 yards, so he's struggling to keep up with the good boy from Duncanville, Texas, Big C. He also has 125 carries for 1,100 yards and 15 touchdowns. So he's an all-around running and passing quarterback, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you talk about dual-threat quarterbacks, Charlton, that's what you want. You're talking about a kid that's just under 3,000 yards passing, over 1,000 yards rushing, accounting for over 45 touchdowns already on the season, Charlton. He's going to be a prize recruit for a team in the country that runs that dual-threat offense.
Yeah, he really will be. It's just amazing how when you think about some of these top players, and I know you talked about colleges, they're going to let players, earn a living on the likeness, etc. But some of these players you'll never hear them on TV unless they're on one of the bigger programs like Duncanville out of Texas. But they're still out there doing their thing. You got to come out to the West Coast. You think about modern day St. John Bosco. They were ranked number 1 and 2 in the country until modern day knocked off St. John Bosco last week. I think it was 38-24. And then, of course, De La Salle, Northern California. Here's another kid, Big C. He's in the Southern California Basin, junior quarterback. His name is Tyler Buckner out of Bishop, La Jolla, California. He's Bishop High School in La Jolla, California, which is basically San Diego area. He has 4,075 total yards, 3,055 passing, 1,020 rushing. This good boy has 38 touchdowns. He has 5 interceptions and 18 rushing touchdowns. If he gets out of USC, somebody needs to pass a law you can't go out of state. Makes me your thoughts.
Well, when you talk about those high schools, Charlton, that are in the top 10 in the country, think about this quarterback, Charlton. This is the second dual-threat quarterback we've talked about, and he's out of California.
Yeah.
This is a guy that is on everybody's radar. Here's a guy that's counted for 48 touchdowns already on the season. Charlton, when the season is over, he will have counted for 5,000 total yards of offense for his team. And you tell me what college that has an RPO option in their offense. This is the kind of kid that reminds you of Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, great quarterbacks like that, Marcus Mariota, who played at Oregon, that can go out and get the job done with their arms and their legs.
Yeah, I love the fact that we have those kind of players, Big C. And if they get a chance to get a scholarship, I think every parent wants to have their kid get a scholarship. But I want to ask you kind of a follow-up question. The state of college football, we know it's an exploitation game, and you can have $100 million athletic budgets for the major programs. That if they're in the top 20, they're probably pushing $100 million. Now we look at the high school level, Big C, and there's so many players that have been, I won't say forced because you want that experience, but they travel from Florida to California. They travel from Texas up to Washington, D.C., and from Hawaii to, say, Nevada just to play high school games. And I want to get your thought on why does that happen to be the case? Is it all about money? Why is there no pushback on that, Big C? They're not getting any money for these kids. Your thoughts?
Well, there's never been any money in lower athletics, Charlton, that weren't classified as professional. Organizations, leagues, schools are out there to make money, and they've always exported kids, whether it's on the college level, whether it's on the high school level.
Yeah.
I know for us, a big road game was spending the night in a town that was more than 100 miles away because they didn't want to bus us back to our local town, Charlton, because we rode on school buses,
Yeah.
that did 55 up and down the freeway. We didn't have the luxury buses or the planes to get on. But everybody's in the sports now about making money. Everybody's broadcasting games. There's networks out there, Charlton, not just the mothership, but there's networks out there broadcasting college games all over the place.
Yeah.
And high school games all over the place. So as the broadcasting of high school games gets larger and larger, Charlton, there's always revenue involved in that because it comes with sponsorship.
Yeah.
To get those games on the airways. And so you're not going to give out the money to these young athletes. Even in college football, even though the NCAA made a move yesterday to get on board because of what Governor Gavin Newsom did
Yeah.
out in California
Yeah.
in the Fair Play for Pay Act, Charlton,
Yeah.
that he signed in the legislation. The NCAA is putting in a rule that's going to start in 2021, 2 years before the California Act goes into action, Charlton. But what the NCAA is doing with this, the universities will not lose any of the revenue that they're generating. They are saying that athletes can go out and make promotional money on their own likeness,
Yeah.
but the universities are not going to dole out any revenue to the athletes.
Well, they're trying to get ahead of the curve, Big C, and we know how that happens. So we wish everybody the best. I actually like seeing teams that can travel, but it seems like there's more teams, and if they're one of the top teams in the country, and we do Big C Friday Night Lights, when a team travels and they go from, say, California, Southern California to Washington, D.C., or from Florida to Oakland, California, they're not bringing the parents. I mean, the parents got to buy their own airline tickets, and so maybe you'll have 50 people, 100 people that can afford it, but they'll bring out teams that have 100 players, and it's just, to me, it just doesn't feel right, but I know they're going to love doing that. I want to take just a moment, Big C, and before we get into Big C's basketball, I want to just cover a little bit of what's going on in the NFL because ultimately, Big C, that's where a lot of these players really want to end up. I want to get Big C's thoughts just briefly on some teams. In the AFC East, you look at the New England Patriots. They're, of course, 8-0, followed by Buffalo. Came back down to earth a little bit. Them good old boy Bills, they finally lost the game, so they're 6-2. And then there's a long stretch. The Jets are 1-6. And the Dolphins are 0-7, but I tell you, they're playing much better now, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the AFC East is all about the New England Patriots, Charlton, and it will be as long as Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are there.
Yeah, I'm going to start calling him King Brady. In the AFC North, Baltimore Ravens, them good old boys are 5-2 on the season. I really love the way they're playing football. Pittsburgh's not that far behind. They're only 3-4, Big C, but that's a world away from where they started the season. And then Cleveland, they're 2-6, asking for some help. And then Cincinnati, do they know the season started yet? They're 0-8, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, Baltimore Ravens under Coach John Harbaugh has modeled his offense after his brother Jim Harbaugh when he was in San Francisco, when he had the mobile quarterback Colin Kaepernick. He's taken the same offensive coordinator that he had in San Francisco, and now he's in Baltimore running that offense with Lamar Jackson. You think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, Charlton, they have 3 wins on the season.
Yep.
2 of those wins came against the Miami Dolphins and Cincinnati Bengals, teams with no win at all.
They'll take them, Big C. I want to go to the AFC South. You look at Indianapolis, they're 5-2. Houston Texans are 5-3, Big C. Jacksonville's 4-4. And the Tennessee Titans are also 4-4. This might be the best conference top to bottom in the AFC, Big C. Your thoughts?
It looks to be the best division in football right now, Charlton, and it's led by 2 African-American quarterbacks, Jacoby Brissett in Indianapolis, and everybody had lost hope when Andrew Luck had retired before the season. But right now, Indianapolis has a better record after 7 games in 2019 than what they had in 2018 with Andrew Luck at quarterback. We've seen Deshaun Watson constantly develop in Houston in the 3rd year of his career, Charlton. He's only gotten better now that he has an offensive line and 2 outstanding running backs.
Yeah, he's really good. If we look at the AFC West, Kansas City's 5-3. starting to slip a little bit, Big C, with Mahomes being banged up. And then the Oakland Raiders, they're 3-4, followed by the LA Chargers at 3-5. And then the Denver Broncos coming in at 2-6. And the great John Elway's, I guess he's relaxing no matter what, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I think one of the things that Kansas City can take from Mr. Mahomes being out from the past 2 games is that their defense has played better over the past 2 games. And so maybe if they can keep that momentum defensively once they get Mr. Mahomes back, that they can win that division outright.
Yeah, they're looking forward to that. If we go across to the NFC East, of course, how about them Cowboys? They're 4-3 on the season. Philadelphia's 4-4 with a maybe unexpected win at Buffalo last week. New York Giants, they're 2-6. And the Washington Redskins, give Haskins some playing time. They're only 1-7. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, everybody keeps talking about Dak Prescott needs to give Dallas a team discount. I think for 4 years he has given them a team discount. He's only earned $4 million over the 4 years he's been with the Cowboys. He's been the most performing quarterback in that conference during that duration, Charlton. Also, he gave them a discount because he allowed them to get rid of Tony Romo, which would have probably cost them about $85 to $90 million if he was still a quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, and all he has done is won. Yeah,
you know, Tony Romo was holding out to CBS Sports saying, give me $10 million or I won't work. And I don't think anyone complained, and that's for a TV job, Big C. If we look at the NFC North, Green Bay Packers 7-1. I think they're a surprise to a lot of people. Minnesota Vikings, they're 6-2. The Detroit Lions are 3-1. And then the Bears are 3-4 in the Windy City. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Detroit Lions are who we thought they were. The Green Bay Packers are kind of the surprise of the division, but Aaron Rodgers has been healthy. They've upgraded their offensive line as well as their receiving core, Charlton. Their defense has been surprising. The Minnesota Vikings, they have only beat one team this season with a winning record, even though they have the top rusher in the NFL in Dalvin Cook and an outstanding defense.
Well, like the Steelers, they'll take the win, Big C. Then they look at the NFC South. The New Orleans Saints, who that going to beat them Saints now, Big C, that Breeze is back? They're 7-1. Carolina Panthers, they're 4-3 without the great Cam Newton. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're 2-5. There's a big drop-off there. And then has anybody found a bird laying down with one wing? That would be the Matt Ryan-led Atlanta Falcons. They're 1-7. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, you know, there's things that people should not believe anymore, Charlton, that's the Easter Bunny, that's Santa Claus, and the Atlanta Falcons, okay? They're out of it in that division. But when you think about that Who Dat Nation down in New Orleans, that division is all but over.
Yeah.
You know, Josh Allen was brought back down to earth in Carolina last week with the butt whipping they took in San Francisco. Drew Brees is healthy, and everybody in the West has to look at him now.
You say don't believe in Santa Claus. He knows who's being naughty and nice. I've been nice for no reason at all, Big C. That don't make any sense to me, but I understand it's all fair. 11 war coming out to the NFC West. Looking for a fistful of gold. You know how sometimes your kids go outside. You can buy them some brand new shoes, Big C. The first thing they do, or a brand new bicycle, especially if they're boys, they go and find some dirt, and they want to go play in the dirt and the mud, Big C. The 49ers are trying to find a fistful of gold. They're 7-0. The Seattle Seahawks, they're 6-2. The Rams are 5-3 in La La Land. And then the Arizona Cardinals are 3-4, which I think surprises a lot of people, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you got 3 tough teams in that division with the Rams, the Seahawks, and the undefeated 49ers. The undefeated 49ers will face some tests, Charlton. They're going to have to face the Seahawks. They're going to have to face the Rams again, and they're also going to have to face the New Orleans Saints. They have an outstanding defense and a tremendous running game. Their only Achilles heels right now is their quarterback. How will he perform in those big games?
Yeah, he's doing his thing, Big C. It's so fun. I love doing the Big C Sports Show. We get to talk about everything. And I was talking to just some local media people in the Bay Area, and they were saying, well, how do you guys cover so many things? It's like, how will we not cover so many things? That make any sense, Big C? How we cover so many teams? Your thoughts?
Well, it's the same way you cover a bed. You just put a sheet over everything.
Yeah, it's funny. Everybody covers a lot of things. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the universe on the #1 podcast network in the universe. That's iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. And the 2 apps that I really love are Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going. I even heard a commercial. They had two white men. Actually, it's a white lady and a white man. They were in a black man's house, and they were talking about, he was in his robe, and he said, "What are you doing in my house?" And they were doing the stock market report, and she said, "Welcome to the show." And so we say, "Welcome to the show." A little bit different. That's how kids learn their ABCs by singing, Big C. And maybe some singing will happen tonight in the NBA. It's a bigger schedule. We still hope the Fires are going to be more controlled in L.A. I know it's still windy. I hope the people stay safe, Big C. Minnesota at Philadelphia. Chicago's at Cleveland. We have the New York Knicks at Orlando. Detroit's at Toronto. Milwaukee's at Boston. Could be a preview of the Eastern Conference Finals, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when we think about the Eastern Conference Finals, it's going to be a long ways away. I don't think anybody right now has a shoe in.
That's very true. Early in the season. And then Indiana at Brooklyn. Indiana can't find a way to win right now. And then people always complain that Kyrie Irving didn't sound nice. He didn't say so. He didn't talk nice to me. Why? The guy's balling, Big C. Why do they want him to talk nice, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, everybody in the media, and they get such empathy saying, well, they have such a hard job because they have to ask the hard questions. You think about 82 games of an NBA season, and you hear the same question every post-game press conference.
Yeah, he's one of the leading scorers in the league. He don't have to be nice. He just has to keep dropping it in the bucket, Big C. Portland at Oklahoma City. Houston's at Washington. The L.A. Clippers at Utah. That should be a fantastic game. Charlotte's at Sacramento. And then you have Phoenix at Golden State. I know people were just jumping on Golden State and saying there's no way they can make the playoffs this year. And Steph Curry saying, look, give us some time. We're trying to fill each other out. Big C, is all fair in love and war, but give me your feeling of the state of the NBA so far. I know it's only been a couple of games in.
Well, it's only been a couple of games in, Charlton. Just as Steph Curry said, everybody's trying to find their footing right now. And if you look at the NBA, with only 3 teams that are left undefeated on the season, are those contenders for the championship.
That's a very good point. And only 3 winless teams coming into tonight's game in the NBA. The much ballyhooed New Orleans Pelicans, even though Zion Williamson's out, they're 0-4. The Sacramento Kings, they're 0-4. Indiana Pacers are 0-3. Sacramento and Indiana went to India to start the season, played a couple of games there. And the only place they either won is out of the country, Big C. That makes any sense. They only got to win outside of the country. Your thoughts?
Well, this is the global impact of the NBA. When we look at it being a universal game, like baseball once was, the NBA is searching that roadmap.
They're doing that same roadmap. Now there's 3 undefeated teams. That's San Antonio, of course, San Antonio, and then Minnesota and Philadelphia. That good boy, Karl Anthony Towns, he's balling right now, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's balling, but will the Minnesota Timberwolves be there at the end with Philadelphia 76ers, Charlton? We always look at the length of a season. It's about staying healthy. It's about hitting your stride at the right time.
It's always about hitting stride at the right time. And speaking of the right time, I love talking about some history of American history on this date, October 30. It was actually back in 1949 and also back in 1920, arriving in New York City at the height of the 1920s Harlem Renaissance movement. Frederick Douglass, entered a world where blacks were moving in vogue, but Africans were officially disdained by a lot of people. Didn't want to hear about black writers. And Aaron Douglas, actually, Big C, he was always writing something to really showcase black Americans. We hear about people by the name of Langston Hughes and Wallace Thurman. Their vision were used for books and magazines, but there were times when they would not use African Americans in their illustrations. Fisk University's president commissioned murals in the university's library back in the 1930s, and Douglas is painted for the aspects of Negro life murals, and it really goes to show that there were oftentimes black Americans could not get work showing black beauty. Walk down a magazine aisle today, it hasn't really changed much since then, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you have to look at the buyers and the publishers when it comes to that, Charlton. You couldn't get publishing companies to push mass black production at any time in America prior to the mid-'60s.
Yeah, and that's great to see progress, but sometimes, and one of the things I love about Big C Sports, we keep talking about it because there's no other sports program In the universe that tells you anything about black history other than how big, strong, and fast somebody was, and Jackie Robinson, being able to get into baseball and integrate baseball, Ali was the greatest, but you'll never hear on any other sports show anywhere in the universe how great African Americans have been in this Eurocentric, Afrocentric history. I love having people Google that every time, Big C. Speaking of greatness, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this boy's universe?
Well, Charlton, on this date back in 1974, I felt the same fear that many Houston Astros fans feel tonight, that somebody that you beloved in sports may lose. Muhammad Ali faced George Foreman in Kinshasa, Zaire, Charlton, in 1974. My idol as well as the idol of many African Americans of that time, Charlton, and we all had that same fear that he could not defeat the invincible George Foreman. But after 8 rounds of an epic battle, Charlton, he came out victorious in a knockout of the world heavyweight champion and regained the title.
And I remember that fight. I understand I still had a pit in my stomach even when they were saying down goes Foreman, Big C. But you can win too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.